Welcome. This is a simple website put together with just HTML and CSS. Right? It's a cleaning company where when you need services to clean your home or something, you would just come on this page, look at their services, and then why you choose them, and then their contact info over here. Their services talks about what they do, and then their pricing, right? Of course, if you order, if you want someone's services or a company's services, you have to pay. So we have a simple pricing tag here for for you, and then again the footer, and then about what their story is, what their mission and values are, and the theme, mostly made up of the CEO and operational manager. Yeah, so we're going to look at how the site came about in just a bit, but before that I just wanted to show you how the site is going to be, or wanted to show you how the site is. Yeah, this is the outcome. I'll show you the code in just a minute. So this is the code, nothing too fancy, just a normal HTML and CSS, some couple of comments to let you know where you're about in the code. Cloudflare um, um, is where we're getting our icons from. When you look at the site, we saw some icons in there. That is where we're getting the icons from Cloudflare. And then we have our own custom CSS linked here. Okay, so let's go on. What we saw earlier, right, the first thing that we saw in the site is the footer, right? Sorry, it's the header. Actually, the header has this header tag, and then in the header tag we have the navigation, right? The navigation is where you can click, and then you can you switch from pages to pages, let's say from services, about, index, and so on and so forth, right? The active class is the and the line beneath the what let me show you something. Let me just come in and show you. This is the active class. Just add this line here, and then just also does this coloring, right? Also gives this color, just so we know the page that we are on, at every point in time, right? Yeah, so if I come here, I only change it to services, right? And then about it will switch, and then contact page. That is all. That is what it is doing. And this whole thing here is the header, right? You see in the header we have the icon here, and then we have the navigation, right? And then if you come into the code, we have everything here is the logo. Okay, from this div to that div, that is the logo, and then from this is the navigation, right? This is the navigation. This one pops in when we are on smaller screens where we can't display all of this here, right? Example, if I have to shrink down my my viewport, I get this. There is a hamburger menu or hamburger icon. We see this, right? That is what we are seeing there. Yeah, so as I was saying, it is nothing too fancy. We just have our div with a class container, a logo class, and then go on and on. So let me just put the CSS at the side here. Okay, then I'll scroll up. Yeah. So this here just um reset the margins and patterns on every element, right? You see, mostly with HTML they have this default patterns and margins on all on some of the tags or elements in HTML. So if you don't want them to have their default values, you just have to set everything here to 0, 0. The star here means that every tag is included or inclusive, right? And then in the body, we have the body here, right? We are saying that every font type in the body should have the Sergio UI, and then the height of the text, right, should be 1.6. It should have this color and then that background, a white or almost white background, right? Now the container we see here, that is how you have you call it in a CSS. If you want to give some styling to it, you bring the dot notation or dot fine dot notation or whatever they call it, and then you bring your container. That is when you have to target this and then you give some stylings or properties to it. Okay, let's move on to this section. All right, this section, the more interesting section. So this section, we see we have an image in the background, we have some text on the image, right? And it looks like we have some gradient as well, or some background color as well on the image, right? So let's see how that was achieved in the code. So in the code, what we just saw to be this is called the hero page, or sorry, the landing, no, the hero section. That's how I call it in the code, the hero section. So let's see how we achieve that. So okay, here. Okay, now the hero section, right? Yeah, we have this here is a comment. It gets ignored by the browser, right? No, let's go on. We have our heading, our h1 heading containing some text. We have a paragraph also containing some text, right? And then we have a link, right, an anchor tag with an href pointing to our contact page. Right, now let's see how we got to achieve the image and the gradient. Now we have the background property here, and we are getting an image from an external source, right? This is the link for the image, okay, in the background, and then we are overlaying that image with some gradients with some blue, or let's say light blue color. I don't really know what color that is, but it looks good, right? So we're going to keep it, and then we are saying that the image size should cover the viewport that we assign, which is our hero. All of this section, since all of this is in or is on the hero section, right? So you're saying that it should appear in that viewport. You get it? And it should be position center. The fore color of the text on the hero section should be white, a padding, and it should also be centered. That is all. That is how we go to achieve the standing view that we see here, the nice hero section here. Not too much code, nothing too complex, just something simple for you to understand. Hey, something simple, yeah, just something just something simple. Okay, so moving on, we have some stylings for our H1, which we see over here. Notice that we don't have any class attribute for the H1, so we just call it with this. And we know that with this div here, okay, its children containers or its children are H1 and paragraph. That is why we can do this. Okay, we call the parent, and then we call the child, and then we give the child this properties of CSS. The same for the paragraph here, right? The font size, we have the maximum width, we have the margin, we have the opacity, right? And then the button. Okay, this is okay. We will talk about this later. Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that later. Okay, let's talk about that now. So the button, as we can see here, okay, this is actually not a button. This is a link because it's a link, it's an anchor tag, right? But then we're going to design this to have the look and feel as a button, right? We have the inline block display, we have the background color, we have the fore color, we have the padding, the radius to curve the edges into something round, and then the text decoration none. Mostly if you're having an anchor tag, the text always comes with some underline. Now if you want to take that out, you set the text decoration to none. We have the font width, that is how that talks about the boldness of the text in the button. The border, cursor pointer. The cursor pointer has to do with when you hover your mouse on it, your mouse turns into a hand, basically. Yeah, a hand, a pointer. And then transitioning, you see when I move my mouse on it, we see some movement, right? The button moves up a little bit with some light dark overlay, right? That is happening because of this transitioning and the hover, and then the hover. Transitioning takes care of how the background color of the button should behave, that is with the dark color on top of this color, and then this care of how the button moves up a little bit. Yeah. So moving on to the services part, right? The services part. This is our services part. This is our services part. We can see we have some simple cards here. Yeah, which contains an SVG, a heading, a paragraph, a button. You know, there are three of them, right? Now let's go to the code. Now we have our H2, which is this guy you see here, this one, our services. That's our H2. Okay, yeah. And then let's move on. We have our paragraph. Before that, let's talk about this. Okay, this grade. Grade is just a way to arrange let's say items on our screen. Okay, like a grade form, you know, a grade form, like we have boxes right now. So we have this, you can make this grade the display flex. We have some couple of values here that you can use, but I chose grade template columns. Okay, talks about how many columns that you want to insert. Okay, and then in this case on our website we have 3 of them, right? We have only 3, 1, 2, 3, with the same size. Okay, and then also with a gap. Let's see how we achieve that. The repeat talks about how many columns that you want to repeat, you know, multiple times. How many columns that you want to repeat. Okay, and then the auto fit talks about how many columns that can fit a space. How many columns that can fit a space, right? And then the max and min, we have 300 pixels, and then we have 1 FR, right? Now the 300 pixels is the minimum width, and then the 1 FR fractional unit, that's the name, fractional unit, is the minimum, sorry, is the maximum width. Minimum width and maximum width, we are saying that okay, the width of the boxes should be between the 300 pixels and 1 FR, meaning that the 1 FR shares the remaining space equally, right? The 1 FR shares the remaining space equally. Let's go to the code and then let's try to shrink this, and let's understand what the code is doing. You see, initially this is it initially. Let me, okay, and then when it comes down, okay, it keeps the 1 FR, right? This is great. If I do this, you see your grade here. Okay, this is how grade looks like. This box is empty because we are not occupying that with any box yet, or any element yet, so it is empty. Right, good. So the minimum width, of course you know what minimum width is, right? 300. It shouldn't go below, is it below? Yeah, it shouldn't go below that. Let's see. Let's see something here. Let's check our the size of this. The size is what? 354. So it shouldn't go below that. You get it? So there's no way that ought to go below that. And then when we see it fill the whole view, the whole the width of the view, the view point, the viewport here, that is where the 1FR is coming in, going to fill all the width it can, right? Okay, good. And then with the next section, which is why choose as, was done with the same idea, as the services section. We have the same idea here, but then over here we have different values for min max, right? Yeah, and then we have a gap. The spacing between here is called a gap. The white space here is called the gap. And then over here, since we can't see any space in here, if I am to do this, you will see the spacing. Right now, this is the gap. If we check here, you can see a gap of 30, right? Pixels. That's what we have here, 30 pixels. That is our gap. Okay, let's move on. Last thing here is the footer. Let's search for footer. The footer was also done with grid, again with the same understanding from the previous section, and then the rest is just formatting text. Yeah, let's look at Flexbox. I use Flexbox. Do display. Okay, Flexbox is also a way to position element on the screen, but the difference between Flexbox and grid is that Flexbox is just one dimension. If you want to use Flexbox, that means you're going to position items horizontally or vertically. But then if you're using grid, you can position items horizontally and vertically at the same time using grids. Okay, so Flexbox over here, alright, we have the display, which will display our flex items. For us, the default is row. The spacing, the justified content will give spacing between them equally to fit the viewport. The align items would center them vertically. We'll center them vertically. Patterns will give them spacings between the content and its border, and then we have a border button, solid 1 pixels also for it. You will see that in the mobile view, since this is where the mobile view styling lives. Let's see some okay, let's check services. Okay, you see services over here, we have the flex. Let's check our services page. Okay, let's check this. Now this here was made with flexbox, right? Let me reduce the font, the zoom, and then let's do this 75. Okay, this is okay. This was done with flexbox. You can see our flex here, right? We have this dash lines around it, and then we know that this is our flex because we have flex here. If I'm to turn this thing off, you see it is back to this, right? If I turn, okay, all this is off. Now it is back to just what, a row display, right? Now this is not positioned at the side of it, just like this would, this was, right? I told you that flexbox can only work with one dimension, either horizontal or vertical. Now the align items center position both the children of the flex container in the center on the y axis. So if I'm to bring this back on, you'll see that this image placeholder here moves to the center, right? Yeah, moves to the center, and then this margin here gives a margin that we can't really see, but then we can see that it's, margins is the spacing around the element. So if I want to bring this one on, you see that this one goes down a little bit because I am putting some margins around this. Okay, that is a margin. If this is off, you don't see any margin. Okay, so I use that idea throughout the page. This was also done with grid, right? Grid. So basically, aside, so that is basically all that we have here. We use flexbox and grid for the layouts, and then the rest is text, styling, yeah, text styling, and then button styling. I'm very sure we talked about this, how to achieve this, how we achieve this in the home here, that it is not actually a button, it's a link, but then we have designed it to be a button. We have the about section, which is also very simple, right? It was also done with flexbox. Okay, and over here this obviously was done with gray, so that we can position things vertically and horizontally at the same time. Now we can see that over here we did a repeat of columns, repeat 2 columns, right? That's what we said. That is what we see here, 2 columns. Okay, and then grow them as as the space, grow them to fill the space remaining. So if I'm to shrink this one down, you see here it gets expanded, right? That is the one FR working here, fractional unit. So if I'm to shrink here, it will always keep the width of its container or viewport, depending on how you wrote the code. And then you can also see that our website is very responsive. Yes, all thanks to media queries that we use in the code. So thank you for staying with me and going through this with me. That is how I came about developing this simple but stunning and sophisticated project. Thank you, and I'll see you some other time. Bye bye.